Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have on Officer Daniel Hodges. He's served for over 10 years now in the Metropolitan Police in Washington, D.C. He was one of the courageous police officers, the women and men who defended our Capitol on January 6th from an attack. And now he's one of two plaintiffs in a lawsuit against the architect of the Capitol to compel the installation of a congressionally mandated plaque to honor the heroes of January 6th that is sitting somewhere in a basin in the Capitol. It's not being erected. So, Officer Hodges, nice to see you. Thanks so much for being on.
Hey, Dean, thanks for having me. And just as my boilerplate legal disclaimer, I'm here in my personal capacity and not on behalf of my employer.
I understand. And I am here on behalf of my employer, not in my personal capacity. It's actually the opposite. I'm here in my capacity. So let's talk about January 6th. I don't want to relive it. I mean, there's famous footage of you that day. I've been at Glenn Kirschner's events where you've spoken and we chatted, I think, briefly there. I want you to share about some of the injuries that you can recall of your fellow officers that suffered on this day and which makes this plaque so much more important to be installed.
Sure. I mean, I personally was, punched, kicked, beaten with my own riot baton. Someone tried to gouge out my eye, crushed. And my colleagues suffered all manner of injuries, lacerations, broken bones. One of my sergeants had one of his fingers smashed and had to get his fingertip amputated, but we couldn't get medical attention there. So he just taped it up with duct tape and kept fighting on the rest of the day. People were soaked with OC spray, bear spray, sprayed with wasp spray. One of my sergeants was hit with a cattle prod. People had Mike Fanone stun gun driven into his neck till he suffered a heart attack, traumatic brain injuries. Aquilino Ganell, he had to be medically retired because he was beaten so bad and couldn't do the job anymore. It's all over the place. It was terrible. And the official number is 140 officers, but really that's just the number of officers who formally reported their injuries. There were a lot more than that.
When you sign up to be a police officer, did you ever imagine you would have to defend the Capitol from an attack inspired by a sitting president because you wanted to remain in office despite losing an election?
I can honestly say I did not expect this. And I mean, who could, except for the people who planned this, obviously. And that's one of the big problems throughout history is just a lack of imagination when it comes to anticipating these kinds of moments. Military history, 9/11, and January 6th, nobody really could predict that, our own people would turn on us like this.
And that's a great point. It is the idea of it's the unthinkable. So it doesn't even go into the ideas of what scenarios do we protect from, or why do I become an officer in DC, or one day I might have to fight off people that are the supporters of the president who want to take over the Capitol. Like, doesn't come up there. Were you also surprised when Donald Trump called these people who brutally beat up you and your fellow officers patriots and hostages when they were in prison after being convicted?
I mean, it was horrific and it's disgusting, but I wouldn't call it surprising. If he were to call that day what it was, he would have to acknowledge his role in it and that these people who were fighting for him at his behest were wrong, and he's never going to do that. That's completely antithetical to who he is. He can't take responsibility for his own actions. It's just not who he is.
No, he's a lot of things. We'll leave it there. So let's talk about, you wrote an op-ed for The Hill, and it's about a lawsuit that yourself and Harry Dunn, and Harry's been on once or twice when he was running for Congress. I had him on the show. Everyone knows him. Filed a lawsuit against the architect of the Capitol, Thomas Austin. And it's in regards to a plaque that was signed into law in 2022 by President Biden. Congress passed it. It was supposed to be hung by 2023. Tell people a little bit about this plaque and the story behind this becoming a law.
Sure. So, in the aftermath of January 6th, Congress, for a very brief period of time, was unified in their horror at what had transpired. Mostly unified to a degree that Congress typically is not these days. And they passed a law that said that they would put up a plaque honoring the officers who, sacrificed themselves in so many ways as a way of saying thank you. It's just a simple gesture. It was by law, it was supposed to be put into place, a couple of years ago, but they have not done so. according to the law itself, it is the responsibility of the architect of the Capitol to install this plaque. And so we, myself and Harry Dunn, are filing a lawsuit to compel the architect to follow the law and actually install this plaque. And we're doing it for a very simple reason that our colleagues deserve it. We've lost so many people, like at least 50 people from MPD retired because of January 6th. There were the people who died, officers who'd actually died, the ultimate sacrifice, people who lost their health, lost their peace of mind. And these people deserve to have recognition for their sacrifice. And beyond that, it's unfortunate that so many people with skin in the game are just lying about what happened that day and trying to whitewash what happened, trying to make it seem like the insurrectionists weren't the bad guys, to put it plainly. And this plaque is just one way of trying to make sure that the truth is understood and not forgotten.
I'm speaking with Officer Daniel Hodges, the Metropolitan Police Force in Washington, D.C. So tell people, before you filed this lawsuit, did you reach out to the architect? Did you reach out to members of Congress to figure out what is going on? Because the plaque's been constructed. At least I've seen images that I believe is the actual plaque, unless it's been an artist rendition. But the plaque is constructed and it's sitting somewhere in the Capitol.
Correct. As far as I know, the plaque has been made. It's in existence. It's just, buried somewhere. I have not reached out to anyone because I have absolutely no faith that they would reply to me. There's only two, like I said, the lawsuit is against the architect of the Capitol.
Right.
However, there are obviously other powers in Congress that have influence here. The only Republicans that have ever spoken to me in Congress are Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, and now they are persona non grata. So I do not expect anyone else will ever speak to me willingly. But it's unfortunate that we have to go to this length to just get Congress to obey the laws that they write. But I'm a law enforcement officer, so it offends me to see something so morally simple, so physically and logistically easy, just being completely ignored.
And it's my understanding, I think the Washington Post reporting that the architect, Thomas Austin, confirmed that he needs approval of House Speaker Mike Johnson's office. And what happened is this law was passed. Even some Republicans voted for it, not all of them, but a chunk of Republicans voted for this. But Democrats controlled the House in 2022. 2023, the Republicans take control, Mike Johnson at some point. But they need the approval of the Speaker of the House. So is it your understanding that the Speaker of the House is not given the necessary approval, and that's why the plaque's not been put up?
I'm personally not familiar with the legal who's actually responsible for it. I just know that everybody's passing the buck unless they actually want the plaque up. I know a lot of Democrats have put up, replicas of the plaque outside their offices in a show of support. And if this goes to trial, then I would love to see the discovery about what forces are conspiring to make it so we can't put up this simple thank you to my colleagues. It's truly crazy, but I would love to see, which personalities up there have it against the police.
I think, to be blunt, under Donald Trump, it's more likely he does something to honor the attackers on this January 6th coming up than he would.
Yeah, there's a few insurrectionists who filed a motion with the court to say that they want recognition for what they went through on January 6th. And I'm of the opinion that we already recognize them for what they did, but then Donald Trump pardoned them. So, whatever.
And that's the truth. I mean, this is what we're dealing with, Donald Trump. You spoke to Harry Dunn. Have you spoken to any other officers, either current or ones that have left the force, about this plaque issue?
Not really. Like, I don't bring it up at work because people already know where I stand on it, and I don't want to be that guy who won't shut up about it. Yeah, I've had a few people come up to me and acknowledge what I'm doing and say thank you, which always means a lot to me coming from another officer, because that's what it's about.
Any time frame for the lawsuit, and that when we might get anything? I mean, it's always open-ended, it's kind of ambiguous, but any sense?
As far as I know, they have 60 days to respond from when we filed, and I believe we filed at the beginning of the month.
Mhm.
So we've got a little ways to go before something has to happen. But I'm not going anywhere, so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
I hope that there's discovery, and I hope people have to testify about why this plaque's not put up, and we'll get the answer. I mean, again, I know you have no personal knowledge of it, but the Washington Post reported that the architect of the Capitol confirmed during a congressional hearing recently he can't put it up unless Mike Johnson says he can put it up, the speaker. And as of now, Mike Johnson won't, to make Donald Trump happy, the man who gave us the attack. So it's kind of remarkable. Um, when you look back at what we've been through over these last few years, it, is it been lessons for you just in life about how you can blur the truth and turn black into white into black, and that the power of elected officials like a Donald Trump have this ability to sway people from what were clearly the facts of an attack on our Capitol?
Yeah, the past few years have been an incredible testament to the power of propaganda, the power of media and people, leaders, people in positions of power to influence the masses with straight lies, things that they know aren't true. But if people will believe it anyway. It's truly incredible. It's how we got to where we are today, not just with the plaque and January 6th, but just in general. It's truly mind-boggling how effective um, some media is on how people perceive the world, even when their own senses tell them otherwise about what's going on. They refuse to believe it. They just default to what their chosen leaders are telling them.
And how, I mean, what are your concerns as someone who works in law enforcement that Donald Trump pardoned some people who brutally beat up police officers, and the message that sends and the potential for more attacks on the police or anyone else on behalf of Donald Trump because they think he'll have their back?
Absolutely, yeah. It's He's just making sure he still has his militia for if he chooses to try to influence the course of history through mass violence again. He's letting them know that there will be no repercussions for them committing crimes, violent acts against law enforcement. Um, and it's incredibly dangerous. It sets a terrible precedent for the rule of law, for our peaceful transfer of power, for everything that America is supposed to stand for.
It really does shake the foundation of the belief system in a way, to see what we've gone through since January 6th to today, the rewriting of a history that we lived through, saw it, and now the guy who gave us that attack is in the White House. I want to get your reaction to something else. The Wall Street Journal had reporting on Saturday. The headline is January 6 rioters are the new hot event in town for Republicans. And it says here from the article, January 6 convicted criminals have used these events. They've been invited by Republicans. Like in Ohio, 290 people attended a Hancock County Republican Party event, nibbling on chips and listening to Brandon Straka, a social media star who was paid $5,000, who was involved in the attack. And we're seeing this around the country, that some of them were involved in hitting police officers, not the most violent ones, but some were involved in hitting and were convicted of it or pled guilty. And now they're being feted, and they're the star's attraction in this Republican Party today.
Well, my initial reaction is that I got to get a better agent because that's about $5,000 more than you guys are paying me. But
That's right.
yeah, it's not surprising. It's like Donald Trump. They can't acknowledge that what they did was wrong. That's not what they're about. And for some of them, they're suffering the social repercussions of what they've done. That they can't be pardoned from that. I know some of them are having difficulties finding jobs or maintaining their old jobs, so they turn to this circuit for telling people what they want to hear about this day. They tell them that no, we were the victims. We were just fighting because we wanted to stop the steal, and the police were the aggressors, and blah 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 blah. No, the police were not the aggressors. We did not pay for their plane tickets to fly across the country with their masks and their weapons and try to force their way into Congress. The police, we did our jobs. We were victimized, but that's not what people want to hear. So they find people who are willing to go out there in public and who are there that day and tell them what they want to hear, and they'll pay good money for it.
It's unbelievable. And also, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this. I've had people call my show from the right. Well, my show was a progressive show, but people on the right call in and they're like, this was all Ray Epps doing. And I'm like, one guy? How did he get everybody there? Did he have a massive bullhorn and amplifier to get everyone to go in the Capitol? Did he run around and break the windows and open the doors? And when you start asking those questions, they get very upset because their brain was not told to answer any questions. They were just told this. But when you hear this ridiculousness, you were there on January 6th during the attack. Was one person named Ray Epps the person responsible for this attack on the Capitol that I may have missed?
Yes. There is one person who holds a lot of responsibility, but his name ain't Ray Epps. And yeah, there were a lot of people there who engaged in violence and encouraged others to be violent. I mean, I don't know what Ray Epps looks like, and I don't think these people understand exactly how huge the Capitol complex is. One person cannot, in person go around and spur 10,000 people who are laying siege to the Capitol complex to violence. That's not physically feasible. I mean, these people, they showed up. I remember I was there in the morning. It started at 7 in the morning. And when they were walking into the ellipse where Donald Trump was having his rally, they had on all this like tactical gear. They had earpieces in. They were carrying backpacks full of their equipment. They didn't just, this wasn't a spur of the moment thing. They had T-shirts made. They about how civil war is going to happen. This wasn't just some random guy named Ray Epps that decided to somehow suck all the morality out of this crowd of 10,000 and then spur them to violence. That's not what happened.
Saw those people at 7 in the morning. Did any red flags go off for you? Like this could get really bad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I told one of them, my colleagues who was standing next to me on the line. We were just there, obviously, and to show the crowd that the police was there, and we expected another First Amendment assembly. We had been to a few of these in the past few months. Trump had a few rallies in, I think, November, October. But yeah, just seeing that stuff, and I was, obviously I didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but I had been reading reports of planned violence that day. And I told my buddy, I was like, this is going to get bad. And he was like, nah, we've been through this before. It'll be fine. And, just seeing that kind of tactical gear on someone is not reasonable suspicion for a stop. We can't go through their backpacks just for that. But, it obviously set off red flags. And our gun recovery unit was working that day. They recovered some firearms. And while I was standing out there, our EOD unit, explosive ordnance disposal, they found the pipe bombs, but I didn't know how many more there were, if there were more, or what was going to be the trigger to set them off. So that was on my mind for the rest of the day. This was not like I said, this is not a spur of the moment thing. This was very well planned.
I appreciate you laying that for people. It fills in some of the blanks for people who might not have known exactly what went on. Last thing, and obviously it's not related to the lawsuit that's going on, but obviously the media is filled with reports of Jeffrey Epstein and the file that DOJ has, and they're not releasing it. I'm not asking about what's in the file because none of us know. They won't give it to us. So we don't know what's in the file. We have a sense, but we don't know. I wanted to, based on your experience over 10 years as a police officer, when you see Donald Trump now being very evasive, saying it's a hoax, saying you're an idiot if you believe any of it, and telling people to move on, does that say anything to you from your law enforcement experience about what that might mean from terms of someone who could be potentially a suspect or a defendant?
Yeah, I think that if I were, the most powerful person in the country and I had largely control over every single branch of government in the United States, and there was a strong undercurrent of suspicion about me and my involvement in this, Epstein business, I would release the files, prove that I was not involved. So, I mean, the fact that he's demurring and saying that I don't know what was going on, when there's all these photographs of him with Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein saying that they're best buds for a decade or however long, it strikes me as suspicious. I know that to go to other branches, I think Mike Johnson said that, oh yeah, we should release everything. And then he very recently voted to not release everything. So, let's read between the lines here, guys.
That's well put. I mean, evasive behavior by someone who's a suspect says something law enforcement. says something to prosecutors and lawyers and defense lawyers. It says a lot to the average person. It says something, and we all get it. So, well, Officer Hodges, it was great chatting with you here. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to keep watching the lawsuit. And when there's some big developments, hopefully a good development down the road, I hope you'll come back on and we'll talk about it and talk about the day that the plaque is going up, because that's what we all want to see. All the women and men who stood on the line to defend our republic deserve to be honored, not demonized by Donald Trump, or not have their accolades hidden in the basement because it makes Donald Trump uncomfortable. So thanks, officer. Nice seeing you.
All right. Thank you for having me.